Hello and welcome to Tapping into Culture. This is a show about beer and culture brought to you by VinePair and Sixpoint. I'm Kat Wolinski, Senior Editor at VinePair, and I'm here today with Max Finnance. He is an advanced Cicerone and educator for artisanal brewing ventures in Sixpoint. And we are here today with Brandon Montgomery, also known as Black Beer Traveler. He is a man of many trades. You have a day job, right?
Yes, I do.
Engineering.
Yeah.
And you have like this whole other very exciting life traveling the globe. You've started a new initiative, Diversify Your Palate. I guess not that new, maybe a year ago. I'll let you talk about
Mhm.
you. But we're all here today to talk about American beer, American craft beer, and how we define that in the context of the global beer world and culture that we find ourselves in today.
Awesome. Yep. Glad to be
So,
here.
yeah, thanks for coming. Well, I guess, first of all, what are you drinking?
So I am actually drinking Paper Chaser out of Spaceways Brewing in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, from Black owned brewery. Just to really kind of highlight the the heritage and influence that those of diverse backgrounds are really making in craft beer. It's easy drinking, IPA. So
Very cool. That was
yeah,
in where in North Carolina?
Rocky Mount.
Rocky Mount. Okay. Is that anywhere near Asheville? I know that that's like a
I don't know
pretty big
too
brewing.
many like the distances of everything
I thought you knew
in
everything about every state. Come on.
I wish. I wish. I know Asheville's like some change away from Charlotte. And so I don't know, it's
Yeah,
somewhere in there. It
it's
couldn't be
in
more
there.
than 3 hours.
Yeah, yeah, cool. It sounded like it might be in the mountain somewhere outdoorsy.
Yeah.
So, how about you, Max? What are you drinking?
Nothing that fancy. I'm drinking a Helles from Sixpoint called the Standard Helles.
The standard Hellas.
That's it. Yeah,
Classic.
a really nice, easy drinking, take on Helles lager.
Very nice. I also have a lager. I'm drinking El Tren Rapido from KCBC, a Mexican style Vienna lager,
Nice.
which we can get into right now actually. Talking about American beer, this is made in Brooklyn by a bunch of American dudes. What is a Mexican style Vienna lager? How is it American and Mexican and from Vienna?
Oh, I could kind of speak on this. Like the history of a lot of the Mexican lagers are based in Vienna lagers. Like easy drinking, like slightly malty, biscuity.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get that kind of depending upon the char of the grain. And so it's like when it came over with all the other styles, it was one of the styles that was really prominent in say that southern region of the U.S. Near like Mexico and so forth. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it reigns in from like that heritage of like Vienna, but then you'll get like extra like maize, corn, and so forth that could potentially influence the flavors and kind of make it its own, much like we've done with the majority of styles.
Right. Yeah. I would love you to expand on that. Or you as well, Max. What do you mean by how we've done with the majority of styles?
Yeah, when I think about like the American influence on craft beer, so many, almost all of the styles of beer that we drink today, and craft beer geeks get excited about, have roots in European styles because so much of the American brewing tradition is based in the European brewing tradition. Early European immigrants from Germany, from Belgium, from the UK, from Czech Republic, or what we now call the Czech Republic, really were a lot of the early brewers in North America. Not all of them, but that's sort of the way that the story's been told and the way that it's, you know, um, been rolled together. And the stories that we perpetuate are the ones that circle around these German brewers, these Belgian brewers, and these brewers out of the UK. And when I think about the influence that American brewers have had on that, especially within this fourth wave of craft beer that we're in now, I think it's really about like turning everything up to 11 and increasing the intensity, increasing hop usage, finding different, new, and exciting ways to use hops, and then bringing ingredients into the fold that wouldn't have been permissible under European brewing tradition. So sure, Reinheitsgebot only applied to a small part of what we would now call Germany, but a lot of the brewers that were influential in the early North American brewing scene were still brewing by those traditions. So even starting to use things like corn or rice as alternate grains really was some of the first steps towards American brewers as innovators. And I think that right there, American brewers as innovators is sort of quintessential to this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I see it as, and tell me if you agree, that it's not necessarily that the beer that we have here is all descended from European brewers, but that's really what was commercially available. So like there's lots of different cultures that were making their own versions of beers. In South America, there was chicha, and there's like different Native American tribes had their own, indigenous
African
peoples had their own. Oh, absolutely, African for sure.
used to sorghum and so forth.
It's like anybody who came from somewhere else brought their brewing, culinary traditions, agriculture, all of that. So it's almost like it's the business of beer that really was replicated from Europe to me. But I'm curious to know, first of all, Bima, where are you right now?
I am currently in San Diego, enjoying the beautiful weather. This is where I live. I would like to say I'm in one of the best beer cities in the world. Just in like per capita, the access, the brewers, with the knowledge, and like the focus of like pushing like diversity forward. So yeah, no, it's great being out here, and I've been able to really learn a lot about craft beer because of it.
Yeah, I think San Diego is a great example of a less homogenous beer scene in terms of the like big US beer cities. There's, I think, just being near the border of Mexico, there's a lot of like back and forth and like more genuine
Yes.
Mexican influence and other, Latinx influence there. Could you talk a
Yep.
little bit about what the craft beer scene looks like there that's maybe different from us here on the East Coast?
Oh, definitely. Just having, say, Tijuana right across the border, the collaborations that have been like picking up and the transfer of knowledge is like Tijuana is on its own way to be like a Mexican beer mecca, just with the association that have been built through different breweries, the brewing guild here, and like San Diego is a nice place, and it's doing well. But of course, always better. It could always be better. The fact that the Brewers Guild is highly focused and created a diversity, equity, inclusion committee, and like pushing forward the with ideas to make it more of a inclusive experience. It really ties into the original idea of what America is. America is a country based on immigrants, and because of that, we all bring our traditions, ideas, creativity to like to the boil to and to the mash tun to really like create a new idea, push forward different beer styles, and it's really becoming a lot of fun, to really showcase the stories of everyone, that's really making an input on what American craft beer is right now.
Yeah. And for you, Max, as someone who's been in the beer industry for a little while, how do you think the American beer scene or reputation has changed in the past 5-10 years?
Oh man, just to sort of dial it in a little bit, like when you say that, what do you mean the reputation with who or among which groups, or you mean our reputation internationally, or?
Well, I suppose let's start with internationally.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
It's funny because we talk about and we think about how almost, there's nothing new under the sun really. But all of the American styles have roots somewhere else in the world, with very few exceptions. California Common, Cream Ale. There are very few what we would call traditional styles that were actually born in America. Most of them were brought to America from somewhere else.
Even the American lager or American macro lager.
Exactly.
That's,
right. And
German descended, Czech descended.
For sure, right. And then you just start using rice or corn to accommodate for the fact that early brewers were brewing with 6-row barley instead of 2-row barley, so they had to fix those sugar protein ratios. But I think within the last decade, it's really shifted gears, and now the idea of American craft beer is sort of an export as well. So if you go to Belgium, if you go to the UK, if you go to Germany, you're going to find lots and lots of breweries with really exciting, crowds and people talking about beer that are brewing beer in what we would call the American style. If you go to the UK and you ask for a local IPA, the chances are good that it's going to be a New England style IPA, not an English style IPA. And so I think the tables have really turned there because a lot of the young influential brewers in the UK, for example, look at what they can do to be innovative and how they can separate themselves from the Bass Pale Ales of the world, in the UK. And not everyone wants to drink a White Shield or a Thornbridge Jaipur. These classic English IPAs. 20-somethings and 30-somethings in the UK want to drink something that's peachy, tropical, and mouthfeel with low bitterness, just like 20-something and 30-somethings in America do. So I think it's interesting to look at how the tables have turned, and now we're sending our ideas about what's acceptable in brewing out into the rest of the world again.
Yeah, I really feel like that has to do with just how globalized we've all become. The sharing of like messaging, marketing across like the internet, social media. People see what we are producing and they want to try it. It's hard to get the actual beer across the pond because laws, time, shipping, so forth. And so they're collaborating on like recipes. There's like the hype, and like younger breweries are like flying over and like sharing their ideas and like brewing, and it's just matriculating everything. It's beautiful. And that's like at the international level, and the same way is happening at the very local level. So it's fun to just to see how the styles is just slowly creeping into new parts of the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I've always really enjoyed about craft beer as a community is sort of the sense of collaboration and the sense of community among brewers. You could walk up to the brewer who makes the quote unquote best IPA in America, and if you express a genuine interest and you ask the right questions, they're probably going to give you a bunch of tips to like lead you in how to make your IPA better or more like theirs. Not a lot of brewers in America are super tight-lipped about what they're doing that's so much different than anyone else. And I think that quality of sharing information and sharing the passion leads to this spread of information and spread of styles pretty rapidly across the country.
For sure. It is very rapid. I mean, in my personal experience with traveling abroad, like the first time I was in Europe, or even first couple of times, looking for good beer to drink, it was like exciting to find a bar that was all American taps, like American craft beer. It would be Brooklyn Brewery and Firestone Walker, and it's like, or Belgian beers too. It was like, that was a good beer bar. But now, like in the span of less than a decade, I would say like now that's almost disappointing to find, to like go abroad, go to Asia or go somewhere in Europe even, and like the craft beer you encounter is your own, like this, all the stuff you can get at home. It's like, now it's these scenes, like the beer industries there are thriving as well and starting to replicate the styles, with their own breweries. But then it's like it begs the question of like, what is that? It's like, is it a good thing that now all these different countries and different cultures are going to be brewing New England IPAs just like us? Or do you think we're going to see those things quickly evolve into, these places taking that style and incorporating their own, ingredients or culture?
I personally think it's going to be a mixture of both. I've actually been in craft beer exactly 10 years this year. And I
Cheers.
started literally, thank you, cheers.
To 10 years. I can't even remember how long. Probably longer
And
than that.
I started abroad. Like I started with the Belgians, drinking them in Japan. It
Yeah.
wasn't until after that I came back to the States and realized craft beer was a thing. And so I've watched the entire arc of like the classic, the local, and then like the transfer into these kettle sours, like smoothie IPAs, smoothie seltzers, and so forth. And it's pretty amazing to see how it transfers. And it's only going to keep like us all like developing new styles. And the classic styles aren't going to go away because the brewers still love the classics. They understand the skill that's needed to brew a classic, and also understand, well, people are searching for this and may not have to dump this beer. We could create a new experience that people still enjoy. Um, and it's really pretty cool where it's all going, and you'll also still be able to see the culture that's being created, because as well as like our New England IPAs are circling the globe being brewed by young brewers in different countries, we're now brewing Japanese lagers.
Yes. Love
And
that trend. Japanese rice lager is my shit.
yes, because they're delicious. Like I used to love myself a Sapporo. Anytime I saw the bottle at like a bar, it's like, oh, let me get that. Now we're brewing them and doing a pretty good job doing it. And so, like, as much as we're transferring out, we're transferring in.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to Japan to get your Belgian beer, and you're going like back to the US to get your Japanese rice lager. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kat, I don't think there's a ton of concern in my mind about what you were alluding to with, the world just becoming flooded with New England IPAs and then washing over every local culture's options.
I
I
didn't quite say that, but
no, I know. But I think it's more of a chance for other people to, see what we're doing and taste what we're doing, and then using it as a building block where they can add to it and remix it in their own way. I just had a beer the other night that was, I think it was a Helles, maybe it might have been a Czech Pilsner even, but it was made in Hong Kong with green peppercorns, and
whoa,
that was that was a really interesting flavor combination that I don't think I've
so
seen
cool.
the American brewers doing. I'm not saying it hasn't been done, but um, the Brazilian beer scene is exploding right now, and
Yes.
if you look at Brazilian beers, you're going to see some really interesting tropical fruits used and flavor combinations that in New York City I haven't seen in our beer scene. So sometimes it does take bouncing an idea around the world and seeing what it comes back to you with to see this is a really cool innovation that someone else thought of that we might not have thought of because our palate isn't, diversified in the same way
Yeah.
that their palate would be.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Like, and I'm with you with the peppercorn, because I was in Beijing and ran into a brewery that was owned by a white guy from Ohio, that lived in Beijing, and I think it was like, I can't remember the name. Oh wait, Great Leap. I have a that's its growler right there.
Yeah.
And they used like a Chinese peppercorn and like this, like I believe it was like a saison or a table Belgian. Delicious. I've been trying to get so many brewers to like do something with the Chinese peppercorn that I'm like, please bring that over here. The
Yeah.
flavor, the subtle spice will just play so well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was in China 3 or 4 years ago. I don't even know anymore. But um, I remember having I have distinct memories of a beer that, it was like what seemed like it would be an American style sour beer, but it was made with a sour plum, and it was like one of the best things I've ever tasted. It just like blew my mind. And that's, these are the things that, I I may come at it cynically in terms of everyone's making American beer now, but yeah, I really find a lot of delight in seeing these things interpreted in all the different ways that they can be as well. So I want to back it up to Beaumont in case anyone didn't quite catch that. He's been in the American craft beer scene for 10 years.
Yep.
Because he found out about craft beer in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I know this about you, you may not have said it here, because you drank a Delirium Belgian strong ale. So
Yep.
It's like, what a crazy way to end up back here. How did all that happen?
Traveling for my full-time job. Then I lived in New Jersey, and we had a project in Japan, and one of my close friends and coworkers then took us all to Delirium Cafe right there in Tokyo. I think at that point there was two. Now there are like three. I think St. Bernard's has a place. Beer bar Popeye's another great bar.
All in Tokyo?
Yeah, all in Tokyo.
Three Delirium cafes. Wow.
Yes.
Crazy.
And so there was just one night we go in, and like my mind is just completely blown. And I kind of looked at it as like, this is delicious. Why didn't I know about this? Then I start to think a little bit more about it and like the circles and opportunities. And I was never really introduced to it because the circles and the areas in which I spent my life up to that point was not actually like marketed. Craft beer wasn't marketed to me. It wasn't in that situation or in the spaces that I found myself. And so that kind of put me in a position where now that I know, I'm telling everybody, and I'm going to tell y'all gonna like love it. If not, we're gonna find something for you, and we're all just gonna be in this. And that's how I eventually got the 10 years today now, branded and everything.
Yeah. And just to jump in there, and to talk a little bit more about your initiative, I am finding it like, it's crazy. It's a crazy story, but it's also kind of disheartening, right? Like, why did it take a trip to Japan to introduce you to beer that was already here?
Yes.
So how can we do a better job of like making these things, making craft beer and just more available and, inviting more people in?
I always say the first thing to do is reach out to your local community and organizations. Historically, most breweries are situated in industry spaces where the local population is like black and brown, Latinx, so forth. And reach out. You need like staff. You need like people that are really want to be a part of the the businesses and the location. So look to hire your staff there. Pair up with local organizations. Get assistance on marketing. Sometimes it's just that easy to like get a second pair of eyes that are outside of the actual brewers and the owners to actually, if you want to expand your actual patrons to not just the friends that kind of already know you or the people that are already within the industry, then you kind of have to do that market research and kind of pair up with the organizations that could introduce you to that market segment. So that's the easiest way. Yeah.
Yep. Totally agree.
Yeah, and for myself, I've tried to be the actual once once I'm in the room, I'm pulling everybody into the room myself, and So just trying to help people that aren't necessarily a part of that market segment to get ideas and support is like, okay, we can reach out this way. The brewery that I work at here in San Diego, Second Chance Beer Co. Plug, actually reached out to me to actually take over this story for Juneteenth. So in celebration of that, took over, posted, spoke on it, shared my story, shared the stories of others. They just allowed me to actually kind of become a showcase for the celebration, and super success. And you kind of like do a lot of collaboration and put the resources forth to actually help change the idea of what it is craft beer, and show that it's inclusive and it's a part of the American aesthetic, and as inclusive as the American idea. Tried to
Absolutely.
bring it back around. Yes.
Thank you.
I love that.
That was great.
Yeah.
Well said.
I've
Thanks,
always
Max.
said that, you know, and Beaumont, you sort of touched on this. I think that there is a craft beer for everyone.
Yes.
If you haven't found a craft beer that you like, that's just because you haven't tried enough craft beers yet.
True.
I once had someone tell me that, like, oh, I don't like beer because I don't like carbonation. Well, surprise, there's beer that's not even carbonated.
We got flat stuff too.
Let's give you a still lambic or an old ale that's still in the bottle.
Right, and it tastes nothing like this lager. Or
absolutely. The spectrum of flavors that you can get is so wide that there really is something for everyone. And I think for a long time, a lot of people have held this idea that only white guys that look like me and have a beard and wear flannel are into craft beer. But I think that's only because, I've never bought into that idea. That's only because those are the people that are most exposed to it. And, if we open the tent up and stop relying on this idea of craft beer as exclusive, and, lean into the inclusivity of it, then this tent can get a whole lot bigger and it gets more interesting. I've always said, I think craft beer is better for everyone when craft beer is better for everyone.
I like that.
The more palettes you bring into the equation, the more interesting the product gets.
Yeah, absolutely true. Something that you said in a past interview, Beaumont, was like, Black drinkers were not drinking Ciroc before someone put them in front of Ciroc, or like the beer that you were drinking, like you were drinking Heineken because Heineken was sponsoring the parties you were going to. It's like you just have to, even along with like the community aspect, also from the marketing and the business aspect, like just be in front of different communities, be in front of different groups of people.
Yes. So that I've made it a point to kind of super serve like the community and like locate the local like Black and brown diverse brewers, brewery owned and so forth, and try to highlight them. I had an event at the other tap room that I work at, L-Tails, where the highlight was having like 4 different beers from 3 different Black owned breweries during this event. Also having Black owned wine poured at this event, and just the exposure. Like once that's placed in front of everyone, there's like, wait, we do this too. Then that's gonna drive the curiosity, and not only will it drive the curiosity to those particular brands, but craft beer in general. It's much like seeing like a young girl seeing Kamala Harris as vice president. Like you see the resemblance. It's like seeing the diversity that's now pushed on television. Once you kind of see yourself as like a young developing mind, you've like, I could do that. Like at first, sometimes yes, you could figure out, oh, I could do that without seeing, but just that little bit of connection really goes a long way when it comes to adventuring into new spaces.
Absolutely. All very true.
I can't say it any better than that.
I know. All the truth is out there. Well, we've gone a bit longer in this episode than we normally do. So unless you have any other thoughts, I think we can wrap it up and, shout out anyone you want to shout out while we're here.
I want to shout out everybody just creating and sharing their story through craft beer, whether they're making lagers or imperial stouts, pastry stouts, like IPA, like method traditional, because we can't make them over here and call them lambics. So yes, that's beautiful. Marcus Baskerville down in San Antonio, always supporting. Theo and Benny from Crowns and Hop, always supporting. And actually, this is just like a kind of personal beer mentor for me. That he's on I would say the darker sides of craft beer. Marvin, he knows who he is. Shout him out.
That's pretty mysterious, but okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate it all.
Cool. Yeah, Marcus was on a prior episode with us, and he actually shouted out you too.
Oh, Matt.
Yeah. I'll send you the transcript. And I got my Crowns and Hops original Gangster Founders crew right here.
Oh, okay, nice.
There you go.
Early adopter,
Yeah, I know they appreciate that. Yeah, I'm in there too.
Yeah, all great people and like yourself. And thank you both for having this chat with me. Cheers again.
Cheers.
To the world of beers, American and otherwise.